Today, more than 2 million Americans are locked up behind bars, putting the country ahead of any other in the world with the most people in prison. But now, Democrats and Republicans in Washington have come together with a bill that could finally reform the criminal justice system so people aren't going to prison unnecessarily. Jennifer Wishon has that story.
These are some of the most influential senators on Capitol Hill.
We come from different spots on the political spectrum.
But instead of pointing fingers at each other, they're shaking hands over a proposal to reform America's criminal justice system.
This is a bill that we can be proud of.
The senators say their reforms will make America safer. Former prosecutors like Utah Republican Senator Mike Lee, who helped craft the bill, say too often in America the punishment doesn't fit the crime, that the law imposes unnecessarily harsh punishments on too many offenses, putting more people in prison than need to be there. The senator's bill gives judges the ability to hand out sentences below the mandatory federal guidelines for nonviolent drug offenders. Inmates currently serving time who are considered low risk to be repeat offenders can also reduce their sentences by 25% by taking part in rehab programs. Eligible inmates must undergo regular tests to determine their likelihood of reoffending. Those who get their sentences reduced would be released into some sort of community-based supervision. The proposal also gets rid of the 3 strikes and you're out law that requires life sentences for some nonviolent offenses. Senators say special care was taken to ensure that violent career criminals stay locked up. Members of the House are working on their own legislation, but the Senate version already has the support of President Obama, who calls the proposed changes a historic step forward towards addressing systemic problems in America's criminal justice system.
1 in 3 American adults has a criminal record of some kind.
That's some 80 million Americans. Lance Lamons helps lead a coalition of unlikely allies pushing for reform, bringing groups like the NAACP together with the Faith and Freedom Coalition.
The fact that not only these groups have come together, but the millions of individual Americans who these groups represent, it's more than just a Washington, D.C. thing. I think it is a grassroots moving up through the channels, and now it's finally arrived in Washington.
Over the past 3 decades, the number of Americans incarcerated has increased by 500%. Incarceration is a significant budget line item, too. This year, taxpayers will spend $80 billion to keep people locked up, including a disproportionate number of minorities. And get this, an estimated 2.5 million children live in homes where at least one parent is behind bars.
Is that really how we want our children to be raised? Is this cycle something that we want to continue, or is there a way to break it? And we think that the movement that we've seen is a way to break that cycle, and I call it, breaking the cycle of incarceration and incorporating a cycle of redemption instead.
Supporters of reform give credit to Christian groups like Prison Fellowship for sounding the alarm years ago on the need for more rehabilitation.
Committing crime is not moral, but neither is over-punishing moral, and we have to find the right balance between the morality of punishment and the immorality of over-punishment.
Although there's broad support for making changes in the prison system, the legislative clock is ticking. President Obama says he'd like to have a bill on his desk before the end of the year. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.